Winner. The race on who will be president being decided right now.
Polls officially closed on a night that will make history.
As of right now, we know we are on track for record-breaking turnout in this election.
Droves of voters raising their voices by casting their ballots. First-time voters hoping tonight their candidate wins.
Honestly, it felt empowering.
It was a really kind of important experience, and that you felt like you were having a real contribution.
Projected winners in some key races called, others too close to call.
It's going to be really tight.
Ballots being carefully counted right now.
There's no chaos going on right now. No pandemonium.
Tonight, Michigan in the spotlight, a key state in election 2024.
Tonight, we are bringing you extensive Team 7 coverage of this historic election with back-to-back live reports from across Metro Detroit. We are covering major races, controversial issues, and the voters raising their voices to make change. Good evening to you and welcome to Election Night 2024. I'm Carolyn Clifford.
And I'm Mike Duffy. We are bringing you full, in-depth coverage of this historic presidential race.
And we're raising the voices of voters in communities across Metro Detroit.
Our editorial director, Chuck Stokes, joining us tonight for election analysis and the role Battleground Michigan's playing.
And 7 News Detroit's Simon Shaquette mapping out county-by-county turnout for the presidential election.
But first, let's get right to the Michigan numbers. They're constantly changing, but as of right now, here's how the race for president stacks up. Vice President Kamala Harris has 51% of the vote to Donald Trump's 46%, with 31% of the precincts reporting.
Supporters of Vice President Harris have gathered at her alma mater at Howard University in Washington, D.C. tonight to watch the returns come in.
For Trump, the place to be is Florida. The former president and his supporters are in West Palm Beach, keeping an eye on the vote tally there.
Let's take a deeper dive now into the Michigan numbers and trends in Metro Detroit for the presidential race.
Our own Simon Shaquette keeping track of it all and joins us now with what he's seeing on the big monitor. Simon, what are you looking at right now?
Yeah, this mapping system gives us a lot of great insight. You know, right now I'm looking at Macomb County, and I want to show you right there, 16.2% estimated votes being counted, or being reported rather, 50%, a little bit over 50% actually for Trump, 47.5% roughly for Harris. Now, we can slide over to Oakland County. There, more than 73% reporting, 54% Harris, Trump, 44.4%. Now, dropping down to Washtenaw County. Okay, that includes Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan, 66.2% for Harris, Donald Trump, 31.3%. And then, of course, Wayne County, we're seeing 86.3%. Harris, 12.4%. Trump with a significant amount reporting there. Also, I just want to point out one other thing in Kent County, the fourth largest county in Michigan. That county has essentially turned purple as of late. That's where Harris is 62.3%, Trump 35.8%, and that is with 36.1% reporting. We'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Simon. Now, joining us right now with more insight to the presidential election is our own editorial director, Chuck Stokes. So, Chuck, both campaigns zeroed in on Michigan. We know that with campaign stop after campaign stop, rallies, spent millions of dollars on advertisements here in Michigan. An election data scientist told me this week, whichever candidate wins Michigan has a 76% chance of becoming president. So, Chuck, what's the path to victory for either Harris or Trump tonight in terms of Michigan?
I think that's very good analysis. Michigan is a key purple swing state. Whoever wins this state, and especially if they can also win Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, that's probably the road to the White House. The key is going to be what happens probably in the major cities as of right now, who overperforms, who underperforms, and what happens in some of the suburban outlying areas closest to the big cities, and who gets their base out there in that middle ground, the independents, the crossover votes, who holds onto that or captures that, whichever term you want to use. Does the Liz Cheney factor work for Kamala Harris? And if not, then it goes to the benefit of Donald Trump.
You've watched so many races, presidential races especially. Are you seeing any surprises right now as you're watching the numbers on ABC?
It's a little early to tell yet, but I'm going to be particularly interested in watching what males do of all different colors, and particularly what women do of all different colors. Because what you have here, which is a little different than when Barack Obama ran and made history, is you have a gender factor in here. And I was talking to a political scientist at Wayne State University, and she said there are still a lot of women that have difficulty seeing a woman as president of the United States. So we're going to wait and see.
We're going to wait and see. A lot of people are biting their nails right now, but we're going to watch it until the very end. Thank you so much, Chuck. Mike?
All right, Carolyn, let's turn now to the hotly contested race for a Michigan seat in the U.S. Senate. Here is the latest vote count. Let's take a look now. Democrat Representative Alyssa Slotkin is going head-to-head with Republican Mike Rogers. Right now, 33% of precincts are reporting. And in that, 51% are for Alyssa Slotkin, to Mike Rogers, 45%. Of course, this is only 33%. And we will see where it goes from here. They of course, are vying to replace retiring Democrat Debbie Stabenow. Carolyn?
All right. Thank you, Mike. Now we start our U.S. Senate coverage tonight with 7 News Detroit reporter Ruta Elsenaitis. She is live in Novi at the Mike Rogers watch party inside the Suburban Collection Showplace. Hi there, Ruta.
Yeah, good evening, you guys. Well, what a night. People have been here for hours now. This is the Mike Rogers camp and the home base for the Michigan Republicans. So when I tell you they have been anxiously watching these results come in, eyes glued to their phones, I really mean it. Roars of cheers when they see something in their favor across the country. Again, still too close to call anything here in Michigan, but they understand how closely watched this U.S. Senate race is. Now, Mike Rogers, he is a career politician. He's been in Congress for nearly 15 years, only came out of retirement when he heard that Debbie Stabenow was stepping down and that long-held blue Democrat seat could possibly turn red. So we've already had a lot of speakers here tonight, including Pete Hoekstra and Mike Rogers, who told everybody that it's going to be a long night, so buckle in, because we may not know too much until tomorrow. What attracts you about Mike Rogers and his policies?
So I like that he's America First. Truthfully, he was endorsed by Trump. He definitely was not my first pick.
But that's what it takes, is that endorsement for your support.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And because of you, all of you, we became the most competitive U.S. Senate seat in the country within the last few weeks.
And Rogers is right. This is a closely watched race, as you can hear. More results coming in, more cheers. We'll be here throughout the night bringing you live updates, so make sure to stay with us. We're now live in Novi. I'm Ruta Elsenaitis.
Yeah, a lot of people watching it closely across the nation. Thank you so much, Ruta, for that live report.
Now our team coverage on the U.S. Senate race continues with 7 News Detroit reporter Brett Cast. He's live in downtown Detroit at a watch party for Alyssa Slotkin. Brett, can you give us a sense of what it's feeling like out there?
Well, Mike, much like it is where Ruta's at in Novi, people are glued to the TVs around here. They have CNN playing with all the results that are coming in, and there's cheers when, Kamala Harris is announced to have won a state. There's some mum silence when they bring up that Donald Trump may have won a state. So they're really paying attention to, obviously, the presidential race, but, of course, that race for that spot in the U.S. Senate. We saw Debbie Stabenow, who, again, as you mentioned, is vacating this seat. That is why this race is happening between Slotkin and Rogers. She was up on stage earlier. We had the Secretary of Transportation on the Biden administration, Pete Buttigieg, out here getting supporters ready to go. But for the most part, they've been mingling, just kind of watching these results come in. There's a bit of an anxiety, I feel like, from some people, but there's also a lot of confidence. They still feel very good about their chances, not only to win the White House, but also to win this seat in the U.S. Senate with Alyssa Slotkin. We know the Democrats hold a very slim majority in the U.S. Senate, and they're also watching those key state house races, too, hoping to see the Democrats continue to hold that trifecta here in Lansing, in both the state house and the state senate. But again, as you mentioned, it's a very tight race. People are really glued to these results and hoping for the best for their candidates. How you feeling tonight?
I am confident in the work that we've done. I'm very proud of the fact that the Michigan Democratic Party, this whole team, we contacted more than 3 million voters just since this weekend.
So how you feeling right now as the results are trickling in? How you feeling?
I'm very optimistic. So it's still early. Too close to call, but I'm optimistic and I know the right things will be done.
A mixture of emotions. I'm extremely excited. I'm also a little nervous. but I'm excited. I'm mostly excited.
And these voters that we talked to, they told us that they really did expect this to be close and come down to the wire, which right now it seems it is going that way. Now, of course, Alyssa Slotkin is currently in Congress, so she stepped aside from her seat to run for Senate now. So her seat is up for election right now. People following that race as well, and really just up and down the ballot for Democrats here in Michigan. It's going to be close throughout the night, and people are still paying attention to the results. We don't know if Alyssa Slotkin will take the stage at some point. I guess it all depends how the things go, and again, people are on the edge of their seats waiting for results to come in. But for now, live in downtown Detroit, I'm Brett Cass, 7 News Detroit.
Okay, Brett, we'll be following it all closely. Now, both sides of the aisle are anxious for more results to roll in our battleground state recording record voting turnout.
Nearly 46% of registered voters in Michigan filled out their ballots before polls even opened this morning.
But precincts were still plenty busy all day long, with lines in Ann Arbor and across Metro Detroit.
7 News Detroit reporter Sarah Michaels is live at Ford Field in downtown Detroit, where Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson is keeping us updated tonight. Sarah, fill us in.
Well, good evening to the both of you. We are very fortunate to have Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson live with us right now. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
I want to start with a question that I think is on the minds of a lot of people who are watching right now. When do you think we may have some election results in Michigan?
I think very soon. Essentially, we've been monitoring the tabulation process, and we're far ahead of where we expected to be at this moment. So it remains to be seen how, we have several security checks after the ballots are tabulated before things are reported publicly. But by and large, almost all the ballots in Michigan are tabulated, and so we should see results start to be known in the next few hours. Now, of course, if there's any close races, there's many things that have to happen first, and we have to remember there are 6,000 military and overseas ballots that have yet to be returned, and if those are postmarked by Election Day but received by Tuesday, November 12th, they will still count.
You held a press conference a few moments ago, and a comment stood out to me. You said that you are a bit competitive, and you're hoping that
Yes.
we will be first among some of the battleground states for those results.
That's my hope. And really, it's up to the 1,600 election officials and 83 county clerks in particular on that. But I've been really proud at how efficiently, securely, and accurately our election officials have worked today and throughout the last week to make sure ballots are tabulated as efficiently as possible. So we'll see. I know everyone is anxiously awaiting the results, not just of the presidential election, but many in our state. And so I'm working with our election officials. I'm going to head back over to Huntington Place next to see how things are going there. But I know things are going to continue to be processed and tabulated and reported out through the night, so stay tuned. We'll hopefully have results by the morning, if not sooner.
That's wonderful. As far as voter turnout, you also said that voter turnout in Michigan was, quote, through the roof,
Yes.
which I loved. Can you talk about that to people, what exactly we saw in Michigan this election?
Well, it was extraordinarily exciting to see so many people vote ahead of the election, 3.3 million to be sure, and that matched what we saw in 2020 in terms of our highest turnout election ever. So all we needed to see today was another 2 million people participate, and certainly anecdotally we saw record numbers of people standing in line voting, casting their ballots in this historic election. So I'm optimistic we'll at least be on par to the records that we set in 2020, if not exceed them. But turnout was through the roof in early voting, in absentee voting, and on election day, and I'm grateful to our election workers to ensuring that no matter how someone voted, it went smoothly and efficiently.
Thank you. And quickly, election security, top of mind for voters across the nation and Michigan. What do you want people to know about election security in Michigan specifically today?
We have many layers of security built into our process, and it's very decentralized. Elections are run on the local level in a very transparent and accessible way. We've also had hundreds of observers all across the state today, ensuring that our secure protocols are followed, and that's just the process working. So we'll continue to do audits after the election as well to reaffirm the security of our election, and we invite people to go to michigan.gov/electionfacts if they want more information about any aspect of our elections process that they may have a question about.
Secretary, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Good to
Of
see
course.
you, and happy election night.
Happy election night to you as well. I hope you get some election night pizza at some point.
Sure. Pizza, sleep, no. Pizza, sure. Yeah.
We'll take what we can get. Thank you.
Exactly,
All right, you guys, reporting live from Ford Field, Sarah Michaels, 7 News Detroit. Back to you.
Sounds good, Sarah, and so glad to hear that things have gone smoothly so far, right?
First and most accurate. That's what I like to hear. Okay, another big local race is for the 10th Congressional District incumbent John James facing off against Democrat Carl Marlinga. Now, here is where the race stands as of now. After receiving 21% of the vote, John James has 48% to Carl Marlinga's 47%. So a very close race there.
7 News Detroit reporter Darren Cunningham is live in Warren right now to help us break it all down. Darren, what's going on where you are right now?
Carolyn, Mike, we actually just updated those results, as you just mentioned, that 21% of precincts reporting. I'm joined by Carl Marlinga himself. Carl, good evening. Thank you for joining me.
Happy to be here again.
All
Still
right.
waiting. Okay.
Yes, and so those results, 21% reporting so far, about a 2,700 vote lead by James. Currently, your challenge.
So what's going to happen all night long is now, if Shelby comes in next, then I'm going to be like 9,000 votes behind. However, if Warren comes in next, then I'm going to be about 10,000 votes ahead. And so it's going to go back and forth depending upon what geographic area comes in. If they all come in at the same time, this is going to be another 48% and a fraction that's going to go one way or the other. That's what the analytics tell us. We still are counting on the absentee vote in the Oakland County portion to come in. There's really a lot of reason to be optimistic, but just honestly, at this point, it could go either way.
Potentially down to the wire like 2022.
Yeah,
what do you think makes that difference this year compared to the previous campaign?
It's all turnout. I mean, I think Mr. James and I have been trying to get our supporters out, and some people just think that, well, an election can't possibly come down to 1 or 2 votes. It can. And this might be that election. So, okay.
All right. Well, really appreciate you joining us here live. And so, Mike, Carolyn, I'll send it back to you.
We're going to wait for it to come down to the wire. All right. Thank you so much, Darren. Let's go now to our own Glenda Lewis with a look at the results coming in tonight from other local races.
Many of the congressional races have been called. Glenda, what's the latest?
Good evening, Mike, Carolyn. It's been a good night for incumbents in key congressional races in Metro Detroit. It appears Democrat Haley Stevens has won another term in office, representing the 11th district in Oakland County. And now to the 6th U.S. House district covering multiple counties, incumbent Democrat Debbie Dingell, also the projected winner. The same goes for incumbent Democrat Rashida Tlaib in the 12th Congressional District covering multiple counties. And now the 13th Congressional District in Wayne County, the incumbent is Democrat Sri Tenadar, and it appears he has also won another term in office. We will, of course, be keeping a close eye on other races. Back to you, Mike, Carolyn.
All right. Thank you so much, Glenda. Now, with record voter turnout comes the major task of making sure every ballot is counted and counted correctly.
Detroit city officials are tracking the process at Huntington Place in downtown Detroit, where we find our Ross Jones live.
So, Ross, how are things going there right now?
Well, Carolyn, Mike, it was interesting to see or to hear Sarah talking to the Secretary of State about possible record turnout across the state of Michigan. They were certainly hoping for record turnout here in the city of Detroit. They are not expecting that as of right now. They're thinking maybe 50 or 51%, which is about what we saw 4 years ago. In terms of raw data that we have, with about 50% of the Detroit vote tallied so far, Kamala Harris with about 93% of it, and Donald Trump getting less than 6%. Now, it was never a question of who was going to win Detroit. It was always going to be Kamala Harris. Donald Trump never had a shot of that. But what is interesting, and what his campaign was hoping in all these urban cities, is that he could move maybe 3.5% vote that he got back in 2020 and turn that into 5 or 6. Well, it just so happens he got 3.5% here in Detroit in 2020. Right now, he is targeting to be just under 6%. So if Donald Trump can eke a little bit more out of Detroit, it requires Kamala Harris to get more out of another part of the state that Joe Biden did well in, or maybe not as well in, back in 2020. So it's kind of a chess match in that regard. But right now, with about 50% of the vote in, Kamala Harris is certainly going to win Detroit, but it may not be by the margin that she was hoping to in order to have the best chance of winning Michigan. And of course, whoever wins Michigan has a much better shot of winning this whole thing. We're live at Huntington Place. I'm Ross Jones, 7 News Detroit.
All right, Ross, some very interesting developments there. Thank you.
All right, our Team 7 coverage continues now with 7 News Detroit reporter Whitney Burney.
She's live at a local diner in Madison Heights hearing from voters. Whitney, good evening.
Hey, good evening, Mike and Carolyn. We have been here in Madison Heights all evening, but before we came here, we were also in Macomb County at Sterling Heights at a diner there talking to regular folks, voters who were casting their ballots early or casting them today in a traditional sense. We've heard about the issues that are important to voters all across the board. A lot of what we were hearing was about inflation and the economy, but voters were pretty split on who they believe will be better at that, whether it was Harris, whether it was Trump. They were definitely split on exactly who they think will be best when it comes to solving those issues. We also heard a bit about women's reproductive rights in addition to issues at the border. We got a chance to talk to some of those voters. Take a listen to what they had to say as far as what drove them to the polls and who they're hoping will pull out the win tonight.
One of the first things I always think about is I have 3 daughters, and them having the freedom to choose their rights, and also, looking at the economy. As a small business owner, I appreciate the struggles that we have as business owners, but at the same time, we have to balance it. My daughters are wearing their pearls, and my wife's wearing her pearls, so obviously, my favor is towards Harris.
Less taxes, less inflation, cutting taxes on the upper class so more jobs become available for the middle and lower class so we can all get up more paychecks.
I'm looking forward to retiring, but honestly, I had to run up some debt to get here today in the last 3.5 years. It seems like there's not enough money, and actually I make a pretty good living, and I don't see it getting better under this administration. I believe with Trump we're going to get a better economy. We're going to get a better border. We're going to have more opportunity.
So as I was saying before, women's rights, the economy, inflation were some of the things that were top of mind for voters this evening. But again, we heard from Harris supporters and Trump supporters wanting to see them win after we get that final tally. We are expecting the state of Michigan to have that tally by tomorrow, the final unofficial results. But again, we will have to wait to see what happens across the country. Voters here at this watch party at Mia's Tasty Grill are anxious. They've been watching the screen since the polls closed at 8 p.m. tonight. But again, we'll have to wait to see what happens. For now, live here in Madison Heights, Whitney Burney, 7 News Detroit.
All right. Thank you so much, Whitney. Now, coming up next at 11, the Green Party candidate. We're heading to the watch party for Dr. Jill Stein.
Plus, a look at the local sheriff's races in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. It's all next at 11.
Your voice matters, your vote counts, and 7 News Detroit will be there every step of the way. From morning to night, providing depth and balance to keep you informed on the races that matter most. From the school board to the State House and the White House. Make your voice matter. Turn to 7 News Detroit and WXYZ.com. America Votes 2024. Extended coverage continues right here on 7 News Detroit.
People say getting hit by a linebacker like me is like getting hit by a truck. But that's not true. Getting hit by a truck would be much worse. If you're hurt by a big truck, get the Bernstein Truck Team. They have the experience and the resources to take on the big truck insurance companies. Call Sam.
Picture this. It's almost Black Friday, but you've had